This makes me jump. It's very loud. I'll keep that open on mine just so I
In
can
case
keep an
anyone
eye
has
on it.
any
Yeah, in case
issues
there's
with
any
it.
questions.
So how are things going?
Yeah, okay. His appetite's still been a bit up and down, but it has been, I think, since the weather started warming up. So I think it's just a seasonal thing with him. But the last couple of days, he's been eating his food after his walk again, and then in the evening again. So I don't know. It's got colder again, hasn't it? So I don't know. Um, yeah, but he's all right. He no straining today when he was pooping, so that was nice to see.
When you were talking about the straining, talk to us about that. What was happening? So what's that first poo like? As gross as that sounds, poo, we're good with poo. We like descriptors.
It's helpful.
It seems normal enough. But he's kind of doing them like right in the woods, so he likes to like poop in private. So I don't really pick them up when they're in the woods, to be honest,
Yeah.
because they're out of the way of everyone, and
But you
it's
can see them. You go and check
I
on them.
can see them. They look normal, and then
Not
he
dry
moves on
and
to a
chalky.
different spot, and he's walking around a bit, and then he stops again, and then he's straining, probably for about a minute, and then you'll see the actions, when
Yeah.
something's coming, moving along, and then he'll just get little bits out. Then after that, little, I don't
And
know,
are they dry or chalky or kind of, or are they still?
it's quite soft. Yeah, quite soft, really.
And the first poop is well formed, but just
Yeah, well formed. Yeah,
not white or chalky or anything.
no,
Okay.
no.
So that's something that's helpful
Mm.
to kind of clarify for things. Because also, how long has he been on fresh food? Because you were feeding kibble before, is that right?
Yeah, we were feeding kibble and wet food. I think can't really remember now. It's all a bit blur. Um, yeah, he was. I think we were doing like mince from the supermarket and just adding a bit of veg to it
Okay.
with kibble as well. Um, but yeah, I think he misses his kibble, which was leading me on to my question about whether there's something I can make homemade. Really, that's for later anyway. But
Okay. Well,
yeah,
we can address all that, but first of all, and this is, and I'll kind of talk about it since we are recording it, so can become
Mm.
a resource for other people.
yeah,
We get a lot of people saying when they see, especially people who are used to having fed a dog kibble and seeing the poos that come out from a kibble fed dog, when they switch over to fresh, there's
mm,
often not only is there a change for the dog, but there's a change for you in what you're going to see and expectations of what the poo
Mm.
can look like and the pooping process. So
yeah,
fresh fed dogs they appear to strain more than a kibble fed dog because the poos generally are smaller, firmer, more well formed, and they push against the anal gland. That's that kind of straining, unless it's painful and it's going on for a while, that's a different issue. But when it's a bit of a strain, that's actually good because what's happening is that the poo is pressing against
The
the anal
glands.
glands and clearing them. And so I remember you saying that Harry used to
Mm.
have problems with his anal glands, right?
yeah,
He'd have to have
yeah.
it expressed. So I would guess he's already sensitive around that area, and it
Mm.
might feel different to him to for him to be expressing them himself than having them manually expressed. So that could
Yeah.
be part of it. And that's why we also asked you about the poo itself. A dog that's constipated, the poo will not be, they won't have a normal poo and then it's followed by something softer. A
No.
constipated dog, it would look on a fresh diet, it would look chalky, it would look white, and it would be
Crumbly.
really crumbly. And
Mm,
in
Like dust.
pellets. Yeah,
Just
like
yeah.
dust and
And
in
it
pellets.
and it
That,
hits the ground and it just kind of
yeah,
it disintegrates into
that's true constipation.
right.
So that
Mm,
tells us the fact that he's not having that kind of poo. It's not actually constipation from that perspective. But a dog that's been fed kibble for a while, kibble is really dehydrating to the entire system. So it can
mm,
take a while when they switch over to fresh food for the body to actually essentially rehydrate. It's using the fats and the waters in the food to rehydrate itself. So it can look like they're straining, and it can be that the poos are a little iffy for a little bit in the beginning stages of it. But from what you described, it's not constipation. It's probably he's just getting used to his body is getting used to the food.
Yeah,
And it's
yeah,
a different feeling for him about the
Yeah.
glands
yeah.
and it may because it wasn't that long ago he had them expressed, was it? Because I think it was around about the same time you came to see me. So that was uh, oh
Yeah,
yes, Harry, hi. Um,
here we go.
A couple months ago.
no, it wasn't even that, I don't think. It was the I was just looking, it was March, I think it was early April you came, so it was only probably
Okay.
about a month ago.
Yeah, probably it's about then. Yeah,
So
That's new.
that's still new, and there could be some healing still happening around those anal glands. And now he's feeling that he might just be a little bit hesitant because it's a new feeling. So that you might find over the next kind of 2, 3, 4 weeks that eases as he gets used to that sensation because he's never done that for himself before.
yeah, yeah. It makes sense. Yeah, definitely have to give it some more time. But
Yeah,
yeah, this morning he was good. He just like had one and got it out and moved on. So
that's good. And dogs on fresh food often poo less.
Mhm.
So not only in terms of volume, but in terms of frequency. So that could be it too, that he's getting used to his new rhythm with it.
yeah, 'cause sometimes he doesn't poop at all on the walk, and I'm like, oh, no poo today. So yeah, sometimes he misses out, but yeah, it's just
Is it still drinkable?
right. Sorry.
Yes.
But it's all right. It's life.
Um, yeah, so maybe it's just his body just getting used to it, and yeah,
Yeah. And like
it's,
like we said, bone broth is just a game changer in terms of supporting that hydration because that is part of the, like Alexia was saying, the body can be really dehydrated, and because he's trying to heal his skin as well, and he's had some of those other meds, that could be adding to the dehydration. So the more that we functional hydration we can add in that isn't water, because that isn't going to do the job. The bone broth is a game changer for that because it is functional hydration, or even just bits of cucumber if he'll eat it, just things like that have
yeah,
got an added element to it. It's water, but with something else. So that can be a really good little
Yeah.
thing to think about as well. But definitely the bone broth, 100%, because it's so good.
I know
my
he is.
bone broth in his food. Last time I made that last batch, I put I think three of those bones in the axle. Was it axle
Yeah,
bone?
yeah.
Yeah, three
Yeah,
of those.
what I would do is I wouldn't put it in when you cook it. I would do that separately at the meal time.
Mhm.
So I would
Okay.
cook one of those bones and then add a little bit of warm water and make a gravy up in a cup and then put that on top of his food. So it's almost like a bit of a ramen bowl. So
Yeah,
it's
yeah,
got some extra fluids in it, and that might be what he needs just to shift that time, to shift and help support that hydration during this transition time as he's moving on and adapting to the new food. So rather than, I
yeah.
mean, it's lovely that it's going in the cooked food, but it's the amount that of
Right.
fluid that he would need, and that would be when you'd put it on in the meal
Okay.
at
Yeah.
all times. Yeah, that's when I do it.
And are you
I
feeding
mean,
a source of omega-3s?
Yeah, there's oily fish in there.
Okay,
Yes,
you've got oily fish in there. Okay.
sardines. Oh my God, that was a mission. I think it's
Yeah.
me. I've got a mission. I've got a problem with the bones being in the fish, and I know they're only small and they're not supposed to cause some issues.
I
But
don't.
I just don't like them being in there. And I was deboning all these sardines before I was cooking them.
Oh, that's true. Yeah.
But
And I,
fish,
oh,
those small fish bones, they just crumble up.
They
They're
look,
not a problem. They're not going to cause any kind of impaction or anything like
especially if
that.
they're mashed up within the food.
Yeah.
And that's what most people do once they mash them up and then they just mix it in with the rest of the mince once it's cooked, and they just disintegrate. They turn into
mine,
nothing.
mine didn't know. That's a worry. um, they were quite big sardines. They were the ones from the doghouse.
Oh, so they're the whole one. They're the whole sprats. Yeah.
Okay.
So what you could do
Oh,
is
great big
um
fresh, the frozen ones.
yeah, or just break them up into little pieces, and then as it's cooking, either get what are they called, like a
Like a
potato
masher.
masher thing, and just mash them up a bit so it breaks them up. Because once they're cooked, they go all flaky and they just break up.
Mhm.
So it might be that you just need a masher in there, just get it right in.
Yeah.
Yeah.
But also, they're soft enough. I mean, his system will dissolve that. You have to remember that dogs' stomachs, they're meant to gulp their food and get it into the stomach. So they are capable of taking chunks of food. Their stomach acid is twice as strong as ours, which is why they can digest bones. So the small bones are not going to cause any problem whatsoever. So you don't need to worry about that, is what I'm saying.
Yeah, I know. I know. It's just something I've
Yeah,
got
no, I
issues.
mean, it can be hard when we get an idea because we've heard something and stuff. It's kind of untraining our brain to
Yeah.
think that way. So yeah,
Yeah.
yeah, I get
Yeah.
that. I get that. No,
It's just I could still see them when it was cooked, and
yeah. So
uh,
it might be that if you then mash it down or during the cooking process, just start to give it a little mishmash, then it'll
yeah,
start to break it down even more. So because some people use the little fish that come in tins in the spring water that you can get from the supermarkets. So
yeah,
that and they literally do just crumble out
Yeah.
of the tin. So obviously the other fish are slightly bigger, but you can just don't put them in whole. I'd try and break them up when they're frozen. They break quite easily. You can break them up into 3 or 4 sections and then let them cook and then give them a good mash in.
yeah.
It'll take
Mine's absolutely crammed full though. I
a-
need to get a bigger slow cooker because I seem to be cooking every day that I'm busiest. And I'm like, oh no, one more thing to do.
Yeah.
That's sod's law.
Yeah. um, yeah.
Sorry,
That's
sir, did I move? Lucky's I moved. And he gave
all
me
right.
a paw like, what are you
Great.
doing, lady? What are you doing? What are you doing? Good boy.
Well, what other questions have you got, or is there anything else going on that you'd like us to help?
I'm just wondering about like a homemade biscuit that I could make for him that's obviously not like any ingredient that he shouldn't be having.
Well, what's it for? What you thinking you want a biscuit for? Like a treat?
Yeah, more like treats, really. I just feel like he's missing out a bit in the evening. He used to love having his kibble in the evening, just like training, just playing little games and stuff. But now it's just turkey, which is fine. He likes it, but I just feel like he's missing out on that, the crunch, the biscuits.
Yeah, I mean, it could. What kind of chew stuff does he like? Because he has had some of the chew stuff in the shop before, hasn't he? So like the chewy.
Yeah, he's got rabbit ears, and I've given him the pork, the pig's ears, and he's not really fussed on the turkey things. Like he'll take it off me, like really excited, like, oh yeah, but he'll take it off, and then he'll just leave it in the bedroom. And it's like, okay, come on,
Yeah,
there.
yeah. I mean,
Uh,
it's
pork ears and the rabbit ears he's been having. Um, I just wonder if he's digesting them properly because this poo this morning, although I said it was normal, it was normally formed, but I could see little lumps of almost like it must be rabbit ear.
yeah, that's pretty
That's
because just
normal.
because of the fur. Yeah, that'll come through.
Yeah,
And
Oh,
that's normal because the fur acts as a bit of a fiber. That's the
yeah,
intention of it.
and a
yeah.
They don't digest
bit of
it.
a
It's not
pipe
meant to be
cleaner.
digested. Yeah,
Pipe
exactly.
cleaner, that's how I always
Yeah.
describe them. Just brush it through a little bit, little tickle,
Yeah.
little.
Yeah.
But in terms of because the thing is with making anything biscuity, you're going to have to add a flour or something. And at the moment with his skin and the itching, I would be hesitant about adding anything like that. So, um, I mean, the only other thing would be doing something like some dehydrated
Yeah.
treats
That's what I would
that
do.
would be like you could do like the turkey hearts from the shopping and dehydrate them. So
Mm.
that would be crunchy. That would give him a bite. Because I've just brought another dehydrator. I've just replaced my old one and started doing a whole new batch. And what have we had? Venison lung, venison heart, venison no, and lamb
Lamb
spleen.
spleen, yeah.
And they've dried out beautifully and they're crunchy. Ted loves them. So
Hmm.
it makes. I mean, it's a
I
bit gross.
haven't got.
You can buy these dehydrated treats though as well. You can buy like single ingredient dehydrated stuff.
Yeah, there's definitely some. I know someone's doing turkey. Hang on, I'll have a look. Give me a second.
But I would often use that. So I cook Lucky's food, and for treats, it's not so much to give him something to chew on, but more for enrichment things that I would give
Mm.
him the treats for. I would just take out some of his, like the organ meat from his meal that I
Mm.
was, so if I'm thinking, okay, I'm going to prepare a week's worth of food and it's going to have this much heart, this much liver, whatever, I would remove them, not cook them in his food, but I dehydrate them. And or you could account for that with other treats, right? Like take out some of his food and add in the treats. And then I would just use that as treats for him that I would wrap in socks, for example. That was his big thing he likes to do, or snuffle mat kind of a thing. Yeah.
Stuff and scarf. Yeah, I roll the stuff up, and he's like,
Yeah,
"Yeah,
Exactly.
fab. Yeah, love
Yeah.
that.
But that's a question that we get a lot when people are either doing raw or they're doing home cooked. Like, how do they handle the treat situation when they, especially for enrichment? And that
yeah,
is one way you can do it is to substitute part of what you would be. So if you're DIYing it, you take out some of it and you prepare it as a treat, dehydrate it. Or you make a little bit less food and you account for the treats if you can find like a single ingredient dehydrated. I
mm,
personally prefer dehydrated treats to the kind of like biscuity sorts of things because even if you're making it yourself, like Stacey said, you have to add in a flour to make that form. And
yeah,
so that can be, it's not great for a lot of dogs, and especially dogs that we're looking at wanting to keep things pretty clean to in order to figure out what they do well with and what they don't. So if you could
mm,
do a dehydrated single ingredient protein, that's a better route to
Mhm.
go. And there's is it JR's that does
JR do some. Yeah, JR.
like a it looks like a jerky stick that you could cut up, but it's single ingredient.
I'm just looking whether they do
uh,
one.
oh,
Like
I think I know the ones you mean. Yeah,
so something like that that you could turn that into treats for him in
yeah,
order to do enrichment stuff.
Yeah, they do
yeah.
do them. I don't think you can see that. Oh no, they're like little spaghetti. They're like spaghetti sticks
Like,
almost.
look,
But they are turkey. It's 100% turkey. That's it. No other nasties in there.
Yeah.
yeah,
And they are hard. Like they will give him a satisfying texture
yeah.
as well.
Okay, I'll try some of those then. It's hard to know what to buy online because you never know what you're going to get.
Yeah,
Really.
JR are always good in terms of how clean they are. That they are just a single source, and they've got a few different. They do a turkey pate as well, so you could use that on a licky mat or as training treats or for scatter in the garden or for in a snuffle mat or anything like that. So the pate is great as well. I'm just looking to see what else they do. Turkey coins
Yeah.
that can be broken up.
Mm,
Not that. Not, oh, they've got pages of poultry.
But in terms of assessing treats when you're buying online, I agree it can be really hard. But what we would do is when you're looking at the ingredients, make sure that in this case, like it is just a single ingredient. That
mm,
it's not mixed with something else, especially since you're getting to know what he does well with protein
Mm.
wise. So you don't want a flare up and not know which protein it was that created a
yeah,
problem, right? And also avoiding the things that are like have any additional flavorings added,
mm,
like smoked flavoring or
Yeah.
anything like that. You just want it to be, in this case, like 100% turkey or 100% duck or what have you. We also avoid the kinds of chews that have like wheat or pea proteins, any of that kind of stuff we would look to avoid.
yeah,
Things you can't pronounce.
Yeah.
The chemical stuff that you can't that's usually flavorings and preservatives is what they are.
Or binders and
And by
fillers and
yeah.
stuff. It's to make it sticky so that they can make a shape out of it. That's generally, and so that's going back to a similar thing about trying to do it yourself, that because you need a flour or something to make it sticky so that you can
yeah,
make it form something and then cook it, then that's what makes it
Hmm.
trickier. But the dehydrated stuff is definitely worth. And at the
yeah.
shop, they also do the freeze-dried turkey chunks. They come in the little bags or in the big tub by the till. So they're just tiny little dehydrated turkey meat, and they break in half, and they
Yeah.
make brilliant little treats. I use those all the time for Ted.
Hmm.
They're really good.
Yeah,
There are options. I think it's just like you said, it's just figuring out which ones you know are going to be okay and not going to add any other issues
yeah.
to. Yeah,
Yeah.
it
Very
can.
expensive though, isn't it? It's like, oh my God, the amount of money I've spent on him in the past. I must have like half a cupboard full of like just chews and stuff that I bought him in the past and that he's gone off or that he can't have. And
But he will, but the likelihood is he will be able to. It's just this first step of just getting him moved over and just seeing which what works, and then you can start adding in some other proteins and seeing how he does, and gradually building him up that way. But I think it's just at the moment during that transition phase, it's just a bit tricky. But it's not to say he won't be able to have them. So keep them in an airtight container.
yeah,
Yeah.
to try to keep it fresh as possible.
Exactly. Oh,
Mhm.
that was an itch. Oh dear. I just moved my cup.
We might save the topic of, in terms of a discussion of rethinking nourishment for another time when we've got some more people to kind of pull that together to
Yeah,
kind
or
of,
we can do a post or something, can't we?
yeah,
Yeah.
yeah. Um, but do you have any questions on nourishment itself? Was there anything about the topic that made you think you might have some questions you want to talk about tonight?
Um, Not really. I don't.
It's okay if you don't.
Don't
We
feel
just
that you're
wanted
on the
to,
spot.
no, we just wanted to make sure we addressed anything you might want to ask.
Yeah, no, I don't think so. Really, I was just going to see what everyone else had to say, but
I
so everyone
think,
else.
well, I think too, with it just being after a bank holiday weekend probably was a
Yeah,
bit tight for
yeah, we
people.
probably didn't think that through,
Yeah.
did we? We got to get better at that because we got caught with another one on Valentine's Day, didn't we? We didn't think that one through. Yeah.
Yeah.
Oh,
We'll get better at
We'll get
organising.
better. Yeah. Well, while we've got you, are there any topics you'd like us to cover in upcoming Q&As?
um, not at the minute. I can't really.
Okay.
Yeah. But do you feel a little bit more confident now about what's going on with his poo now that
Yeah,
yeah.
yeah. Thanks. Yeah, yeah.
But it does
Just
sound like it's okay. But I think there is just that adjustment period. And like I said, just try adding a little broth to the actual food rather than in the cooking process.
Right.
It'll still be
yeah,
beneficial in there, but it's that actual functional hydration with the meal to kind of oil the pipes and support that process of digestion. And it will support his microbiome and everything so beautifully. It's just such a good all-rounder.
Yeah.
So I think that'll just be a really beneficial one to add as a mealtime
Yeah.
to get in there.
sure.
And the other
Okay.
thing too, I know we've mentioned about it before, but tracking as well. So if you start to see that there's a kind of pattern with are the poos better or worse, like at say a particular time of day, for example, or does he have a kind of funny poo after being stressed out or when he's been left at home or any of those kinds of things. I'm just throwing out examples of things that can impact it. And then you can start to see, and then you can make adjustments according to that because you've got
Yeah,
a regular you're seeing it in front of you. It's not like, well, I think there might have been something one day, but you're seeing a regularity with
Yeah.
it.
yeah, yeah.
Yeah.
Definitely. I need to do that. It's just trying to think of all the things to think of, but what's happened
Well,
today?
well, and maybe it is like at the end of the day, you just do like a quick review of what did I feed him? Was there anything that happened? How were his poos? Like 2 minutes at the end of the day. Or
Mm,
if you're out on the walk and you notice that there is a funny poo, take a picture of it so that you have
yeah,
a reference so you could always show us and say this is what it looks like and we could say, or you could compare it to that Bristol stool chart. I don't know if you have a copy of that kind of shows you the
The
different
different
types of
types. Yeah.
poos and
mm,
what they indicate, but you could compare it to that and it give you a sense of what is normal, what is not normal. But it will give you then, especially if you're taking it with your phone and it gives you the date, you'll start to see if there's any kind of pattern to be worried about, or as things are progressing, or as you start to introduce different proteins, how to
mm,
shift with the different, you'll have a record and something to compare it to,
Yeah.
yeah,
which is really helpful.
Yeah. And we've seen loads of pictures of
Yeah.
poo. We're not fussed.
Yeah.
We're good.
And I used to do this with my vet when Lucky was having all of his health challenges and I was at the vet all the time. And she said to me, she was like, I'm really glad that you do this because a lot of people don't. But it helps me to see when you're saying this is what I'm seeing. I can actually see it and have it
yeah,
be like we were just saying to you, actually, that doesn't sound like constipation to us. We appreciate it does to you, but from us, that sounds like it's normal. But if we've got images of things, we can say, okay, I see what you mean here. Or, okay, that level of mucus is too much. We need to adjust this.
Yeah.
This level of mucus, normal. That
I
kind of
must say, I haven't seen any mucus in it for a while now, so
Good.
that's good.
Yeah, that is a
sounds
good
like it's
sign.
doing well.
Yeah, yeah. So,
It takes time,
and
doesn't
it
it?
might just be tickling the anal glands on the way through, and
Yeah.
just a little bit because he's been used to having them done by the going to the vets and having them expressed, and now all of
Mm.
a sudden he's feeling that
Yeah.
for the first time. That might just be a bit of an adjustment for him
Yeah.
as well.
Because the glands
Yeah.
get lazy when they're manually expressed. And that's one of the concerns that people have, and where there's this push now of don't let your vet or your groomer regularly express the anal glands unless there's a problem. But some groomers will do it just as a routine part of the cleaning. And part of the problem is it makes the anal glands lazy, so they stop expressing themselves.
Mm.
So it could be if he's been used, like Stacey was saying, he's been used to having that happen. They're getting back to work.
Yeah,
Yeah.
reactivated. So yeah,
I always think I take him along and she's like squeezing them and I say, are they full? And she's like, oh yeah, they're quite full. But they're not inflamed or infected or anything. They're not like, there's
yeah, it
nothing.
might be now that they're beginning to clear and he's just finding that feeling a little bit obscure and a little bit weird. But as you might start to see that change over the coming weeks, that
Mhm.
gets
Yeah.
straining, does it? Because he's actually feeling that there's something going on
Yeah.
and that they are actually clearing.
Yeah.
So yeah,
He's actually going to the vets tomorrow for his blood tests to test for allergies and stuff. And I'm still in two minds whether to go, but then I just keep thinking I need some sort of answers. I think still,
Mhm.
I don't know if it's worth doing, but it's a lot of money again. And I know the insurance will cover it. But it would just be interesting, I think, for me to see if it brings anything up.
There you go.
Yeah, all information is helpful.
Mhm.
It gives you clues towards things and might make you think of something you hadn't thought of
Yeah.
before. And yeah, information is useful. That's the way we see it.
Yeah.
And I'm sure there's going to be some sort of environmental aspect to it because his itching has got worse again. So
Again, some of that may be detox as
interesting.
well, where he's the new diet and all of a sudden he's actually absorbing all those nutrients. Quite often we see when we switch to fresh, there can be a detox process where things get worse before they get
Yeah.
better. So
Okay.
again, that's it. And it could be environmental, absolutely, because we're coming into spring and now the pollens are coming out 100%. But it could also be part of a detox process where the body's actually starting to rid itself of some of those toxins because now it's getting all the nutrients, it knows what to do, and now it's pushing stuff out, and that can then lead to more itching.
Mhm.
Yeah.
So that's why the blood test could be helpful, and that's why keeping an eye on things and just thinking about maybe where you've walked that day, whether it's anywhere
Tracking.
where there's trees and different types of pollens, those types of things, to kind of build a picture of what might be triggering him.
Mhm.
Yeah. Yeah.
Well, mine was
Okay. I have to do it.
And also tracking levels of severity. So if you come up with your own scale for yourself of, say, 1 to 10 for the itching, and you start assessing what you think it is each time, so you can see like and how long it's going on for, that kind of a thing. This is something that I've done with some of my clients that have really itchy dogs, because they'll say he's been really, really itchy. And I'll say, okay, well, talk to me about how that compares to, like, say, last week, for example. So if they've got then their own scale, they can see it and be a little bit more objective with it and be like, oh yeah, he actually is, maybe it's less than it was, or yes, it definitely has increased. Great. And then that gives us information that we can see where the triggers might be.
Remind me, is it the same place all the time that he's itching, or is it all over? I can't remember that.
Generally, it could be all over, but I think he focuses more on his armpits and his back, like, back pits, and kind of he's always turning around and nibbling his back end as well.
Where
It
on
can
his
be,
end?
but it can be his ears, and he's still doing a little bit of a head shaking. Not much, but just every now and again he'll shake his head. Um, which he used to do when he had a tick or something and he was trying to get that out. And then he would shake his head a lot then because he was just trying to get it out himself. Um, but yeah, I don't know.
Alison, where on his back end is he nibbling?
As far as he can reach to, really, like the top, kind of the side.
So not near his tail, not near the base of his tail.
It can be sometimes, yeah,
That can be anal gland irritation.
yeah.
They try to nibble at the back there at the base of their tail. So it could, but again, these are just things to kind of track and see if you're seeing those patterns. And then you talk to like your vet, for example, or talk to us in the group about it, and we can help put you in, point you in the direction of where that might be coming from. Could also be something like deferred pain. So if you're tracking these things, then you've got the information to be able to go to your team. This is what I'm seeing. And somebody like Yaz Parrott, for example, who's in the group, who's a canine pain management specialist, she might say, okay, that sounds to me like this. We're not qualified to tell you that because we don't know about that stuff. But if you've got a record of that, that's where we can piece the puzzle pieces together to get a better understanding of what's going on.
Yeah, yeah, definitely. It's just right, he's having a little nibble now. It's like just licking.
And also the time of day. What time of day, if you start tracking when is it happening, that from a TCM perspective, a traditional Chinese medicine perspective, correlates to different organ systems. So but again, it's only when there's a pattern. So when a one-off kind of thing doesn't really mean anything. But if you're consistently seeing that the behavior is happening on a particular place of the body during a particular time of the day, that's when we can start to piece together and say, it might be an indication that there's something going on with this system.
Yeah.
But only
he's always quite, probably most of the time, if he's been sleeping and we come in and we've been out, he'll get really excited and hyper and get up, and like if he's been on our bed, he'll come to the top of the stairs and he'll start stretching and talking, and then he'll start itching as well. And it's like, I just wonder if it's kind of some sort of, I don't know, kind of a positive stress response. I don't know.
Yeah.
Or it's from him getting up, having rested, and then he's all warm, and then he gets getting up. I don't know.
Yeah.
Could be so many things, couldn't it?
Exactly. And that's where tracking it with that level of detail can be super, super helpful. So you probably heard me talk about what the patterns I saw with Lucky when we came back, where consistently, so this is what I mean by pattern. It wasn't just a one-off sort of thing. He was getting really restless and itchy and nibbling all down the same areas of his body. It was down the sides, like back, but on the sides. And it was consistently as we started creeping up till about 11 o'clock at night. And then he would start like a witching hour. And we pieced it together with when you look at the traditional Chinese medicine meridians, where he was biting, that flea nibbling that they did, that all down those sides, both sides, that's the liver and gallbladder meridian. And from a Chinese medicine perspective, when the body clock, it takes into account that energy is running through the different body systems at different times of the day based upon when things need to process in the body. 11 p.m. is the start of the gallbladder system, which is linked to the liver system. So he was nibbling on the same areas as he was getting zoomies, witching hour at that same time. So that indicated to me he's got an imbalance with the liver gallbladder system. But he was doing it this time of year in the spring as well. Spring is associated with the liver gallbladder system because it's the detox system. So that told me he needed a little bit of help detoxing. So I then adjusted his diet to support specifically, this is the targeted, to specifically support the liver and gallbladder.
Yeah.
And it stopped the witching hour. I mean, he does it occasionally, but it was every day.
There was
a definitive pattern.
Yeah.
It wasn't a one-off. Now it's kind of a one-off, but it was a definitive pattern. The itching is all stopped, and he's much calmer. But it was only through noticing that
Yeah. Yeah.
Because we'd look at our watches when
What
we
we
were like,
watch, what time
which
is it?
hour
Switching
started,
hour.
and then he could almost set a clock by him
You
at one
could.
point, couldn't you? It
You
was
could.
that on the dot.
Yeah. But that's what I mean by tracking those different things, because that was the only stuff that indicated to me, there was an issue going on.
Yeah.
I saw that kept happening.
Yeah. Wow.
But what that meant was because I caught it, I was able to intervene specifically. It wasn't a guessing game for me at that point. It was like, okay, we see what's going on. I targeted it with some milk thistle with some additional hydration. I added in some more omegas.
Mm.
And I also added in some dark leafy greens to support the liver, and it went.
Wow. How long did it take to kind of fix? Would you say?
Well, I don't like the fixing thing. It was more to bring in things into
Yeah.
balance, right?
Yeah.
It wasn't something to get rid of. It was that his body was communicating there was an
It was a signal,
imbalance.
wasn't
It
it?
was a
Yeah.
signal. I would say 10 days.
Well, it was quite quick then.
Yeah. But I caught it quickly because I
Yeah.
needed to look for stuff and I
Yeah,
was
and
tracking it. That
that's where we're not. That's ugh, I'll put my teeth in. That's where we're not always aware of those things, but it's when you start to begin to see those, that's when you think, right, I'm just going to track that. A bit like I have to do with seizures, I have to track and I have to think about the moon because as bonkers as it sounds, his do happen around the full moon. So I'm very aware around the full moon and I give him a little bit of extra support
Mhm.
in his diet because I know that's when he is more susceptible because all of his seizures in the last year have been around a full moon within 2 or 3 days afterwards. So I can see that that's a pattern, but that's happened because and it's literally a note on my phone.
Yeah.
Literally, all I do is just put a note in, like when I know something's happened, when he's had a seizure, how long it was, where we'd walked that day, and what the moon was, just so that I had it in my head. So when I went to his holistic vet and I just showed her on my phone and went, "This is when it was," and she looked everything down. She checked to see that I'd noted down the moon. Yep, all done. Then he had an acupuncture treatment based on what I'd given her. So it's again just that's part of his team and his acupuncturist is not his acupuncturist, what's the osteopath. So she had all that information to work with him because I had it, and it took me
Yeah.
minutes, not even that, 30
Yeah.
seconds after a seizure just to write it down. So yeah.
And I've been having a thing with Lucky where he had kidney issues when he was younger. And I've noticed over the past, and he just did it today, where he had like a urine leak. It was but it was like diluted urine. It looked like water. And he's had this 3 times. I mark it in my calendar when he's had it, but I also mark around it. Like Saturday, he had somebody come over to clip his nails, and he does not do well with that. That's a very stressful thing for him. Today,
Mm.
we're out on the dog walk, and 2 dogs came up to him and surrounded him and really freaked him out. Yesterday, we were going for a walk, and they were doing clay pigeon shooting, and that really frightened him. So it's not
The
just
trigger.
that I'm looking at where's the pattern with the triggers. So it could very well be that he leaked because he's, in a sense, recovering from the extreme triggers that he's experienced over the past few days. Because we know that it takes 72 hours for cortisol to get out of our bodies when you've had a cortisol spike. So he had that repeatedly over the past few days. So it's not surprising to me that he'd had a leak. However, I'm capturing all of that so that I can say to the vet, this is what I've been seeing. And they can help me and say it
But still
warrants having
getting his
testing
bloods done
done.
and
But
stuff.
I'm
So
still having his
getting his
bloods done to
to
test.
check. Yeah. To
Yeah.
Yeah.
to build a bigger picture.
But it is pulling all of that together, and it sounds overwhelming at first, but it just takes seconds when you think what else could have gone on that could be contributing to this. You just a quick note, and then you'll see if it is a pattern, if it is a contributing factor, and it might not be.
This is the thing I have trouble. I think I just need like a list. Like, what do I need to think about? As in, how much food did he eat, or where did we walk? Did anything happen on that walk? Or, like you say, is there a time of day it's happening more than anywhere else?
Well,
And
those are the great
when?
starting points. Yeah, those are the great starting points. And so what I started doing with Lucky when I very first did the tracking, it was very much around what was he eating, because I was also similar to you. I was testing what can he handle? What proteins does he do well? And then I was looking for any physical signs that might show up for him for something like itching, or if he had any loose poos or really hard poos, or if he vomited, any of that kind of stuff. But then because I know that the emotions play a big role in how physical symptoms show up. I started paying attention because he's a reactive dog. He's a very fearful dog. So I started just making a note of things that have upset him or been stressful for him. Whether
Mm.
that be a vet visit, whether that be something fell in the house and really spooked him. So it's kind of in you getting to know your own dog. What are the things that kind of set them off? It could be for another dog being left alone. For
Mm.
a dog, it could be having too much social time. It could be any not getting to go and sniff, right? Like a quick walk, they didn't get to go and sniff. It could be a number of things. But as you start to get to know Harry's patterns, you
Mm.
just start capturing. It's not about having to capture everything. I think when you start with the intention of tracking, what it does is it makes you look at the dog differently.
Mm.
You just put a different lens on and you're noticing, and I think it's less about what specific things to track and more about how you start to get curious and wonder like, huh, oh yeah, I forgot that happened. Could that possibly be linked to this? I'll just note it down.
Yeah.
Because it will start to be those things that you don't think about that
Yeah.
that reveal themselves as actually keys to the patterns.
Yeah. It's funny because on walks he can get. I'm always like picking it up more now that he'll get spooked by something, and then he'll just sit there and just sit and refuse to budge and go any further. I'm like, right, okay, what's going on? And I'm now starting to think while he's sitting there, what is it? What could it be? And the only thing I can think is the other day was maybe it was just wind and it was just blowing things from the trees down to the ground, and I think maybe it was just that.
It very
And
well
then
be.
I think it sounds certain sounds to him are just terrifying. I don't know why, but it's just certain things. So it's like fireworks, it's not too bad with. He can handle. He can get a bit annoyed with them every now and again, but otherwise he's fine. Like the obvious things you would think, oh God, he wouldn't like that, but he's actually fine with it. But it's just weird little things like the other day in the woods, and I thought the only thing I can think of is the wind in the trees and think it sounds like things are falling down from the trees. And then the other day there was an unusual noise on one of our usual walks, and I was even like, what the hell's that? And I was trying to keep calm, like, no. But he was like, no, I want out of these woods now, Mum. And it's like, we just went out and we left and we went straight back home.
And that's
And it's so keen to get back to the car. And it's like, okay, he's spooked. We'll just go home.
But those
Um,
things have a knock-on effect as well. That's part of trigger stacking. So something that happens for him later on in the day could actually be informed by that walk in the morning.
mm,
But you don't immediately make that association. But it's kind of like if they're holding on to stress and they might have a stress poo later in the afternoon. And you could
mm,
think, oh, what has he eaten? But in fact, it could be because he's been processing the stress from something in the woods earlier that day. But if you start getting curious, just like that, exactly what you just did is part of getting curious. Ah, I wonder, could these things be linked? And you don't necessarily, it's not about answering them. It's about asking the questions, it's just tracking stuff. And then you start to see patterns emerge. So you're not looking for the patterns. It's more you're just being curious and then the patterns emerge, if that makes sense.
yeah, yeah, yeah.
Yeah, like with Ted with his seizures, I didn't see the pattern until afterwards, and it was only because I knew it was a full moon on one of them. I just went, oh, I wonder, just out of curiosity. And then I looked back at I went and
Mhm.
Googled the other dates of the other ones, and I was like, oh my goodness, there is a pattern. They are within 2 days of a full moon. So there is something, and I mean, it's not even woo-woo. There is
It's
science
science
around
about it, yeah.
the magnetic pull and stuff on so there is something. And
Yeah.
I was like, oh, okay. And that wasn't my initial thought when I started tracking. My initial thought was just track the amount of time, how long the seizure was,
Mm,
and then where had we been, what had happened that day. Because I was thinking it was stress related, like because he's a stressy redhead. He can get
mm,
quite vocal, is a word I would use, vocal.
I think that's
Um,
generous.
I don't know, generous, quite chatty and kind of very oh, he's a heart-led dog. Everything's go, 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 go. So I thought it was that. I thought it was a stress response because one day that he had a seizure and it was one of his longest ones. He'd barked a lot on a walk. So I was like, was it that, the stress of the barking? Now it could well be, but it just happened to coincide. But it was only because then on what the last one of the last ones that I realized, I just wondered what the moon was doing. Then when I look back, I saw the pattern. I didn't intentionally start thinking I must track the moon. I was just tracking to get an idea of what I needed to track, if that makes sense, like just opening up that idea. So a bit like you now being a little bit aware that those sounds might be triggering him, because Ted doesn't like the wind. In the summer, when you get those really summer breezes coming through, I have to shut windows because anything that flaps, he freaks, he paces, his eyes dilate, he gets stressed, doesn't like it. So I have to be conscious of that because I know that that's going to trigger stack him. So I have
Yeah.
so, but now you're aware that he might be a little bit noise sensitive. That's something just to think about. So
Yeah.
it's all of those things. But
And noise sensitivity can also indicate pain. Not saying he is in pain, but it's having that awareness of, okay, so let me then just sort of watch all of this. And then
Mm.
again, you've got information you could share with somebody like a pain specialist or the
Mhm.
vet or whatever that could then dive deeper for you.
Yeah, sure. Yeah.
Mm.
I think I'd like to kind of find a holistic vet for him. But I think the nearest one is Forest Row, isn't it?
Yeah,
But,
Forest Row. He's lovely. He's a really nice guy. Really, really lovely.
half an hour away. Half an hour just for a vet. But I don't know.
Well,
Just to get
yeah, well,
well.
I haven't used Chris yet because I didn't know about him when I first started using a holistic vet, and she's an hour away, but because she's one of the only ones that I could find locally enough. So, yeah, yeah.
It's probably worth it, isn't it? When you have a lack of trust.
Yeah, and that's why for me going to where I take Ted, it's not like a vet surgery. You just sit on the floor with them and it's just like a room. Doesn't feel it's not white, there's no clinicalness to it. It's much more lax, which is why he's much more settled there and will have an acupuncture treatment. I couldn't imagine trying to take him into a vet room because he'd get really stressed and that would whereas that he just goes on the floor and has treats. I sit on,
Yeah,
he has treats, he has needles, he's a happy kid.
yeah, sounds good.
Yeah. Yeah.
Yeah,
Lots to think about.
Exactly. Was that helpful to give you some starting points for kind of next step stuff?
yeah, thanks. Yeah, yeah, it's a bit reassuring on the poop front as well.
I know
Yeah,
it's hard when you haven't had that experience before, and it can, I mean, obviously you're very concerned and all of that. And but again, that's where it's helpful. Take photographs. You can always share them in the group, for example. That's totally fine. And that's helpful for other people to see too, so we can have that conversation around
Poop.
what, yeah, and what is normal. But that's how we monitor so much with our dogs. It's
mm,
how are things, I mean, that's how I change things for Lucky. If to give you an example, Lucky, he was having, so Lucky's only 4.3 kilos. And he
mhm.
was eating an entire duck wing. He loves duck wings. And I started to notice that his poo started going more crumbly. And so that's how I monitor. I was like, okay, so a whole duck wing is too much for him right now. Cut it in half and he can have half of it. Just made that change and his new poos are back to normal.
Well, hmm,
So you get comfortable with that. It's like the poo was telling me that was a bit too much bone. So no need
mm,
to worry. Just cut back on the portion of it and everything sorted itself out.
yeah. Mm,
So if you share, you can share photos and all that stuff in the group and we can all talk
Yeah, we
about
don't
it.
mind a poop picture.
No,
We
it's
get
fine.
sent
It
lots.
is how you
Yeah.
understand what's going on. Yeah.
yeah, okay, I'll try and remember next time. He's just snoozing now. That's it. He's done the evening.
Yes,
Good.
Land of He's
Good.
got a habit of waking us up in the morning as well. This morning it was earlier than ever. It was like 4:30. It's like, hang on, really, it's too early. And I knew he was going to get up and barge his way in my son's room as well. That's too late. He's already in there waking up.
I want a cuddle. Oh,
Go to sleep.
Bless him.
Yeah, I think maybe it's the light. Maybe it's getting lighter in the mornings and he's just getting earlier and earlier now.
back out.
Comes up,
Yeah.
wakes up. Like, yeah, come on. I'll go back to sleep now. I'll go back to sleep now. Yeah, but did you really have to get up and wake us up as well?
Join in. That's all. That's what it was.
Exactly.
Yeah. Bless him. Right, okay then. Well, I think I'm going to go.
Sounds good. Well, you
Yeah.
have a good evening. Thanks for joining us.
Yeah, thanks anyway. Thanks for listening to me babble on again.
Posted.
Thank you. I'll try and take some more pictures of poops as
There you
well.
go.
Good plan.
Note to self, poo
Good.
pictures.
All right.
All right,
Take care. Have a
See
night.
you later.
Bye.
Bye.